Okay, I'm Greg.
And I'm Billy.
And we're the Fuji Guys. This great video is going to be on our new S3400 Super Zoom camera. We're going to go through its top features, but if you haven't watched our startup video, check this one out first. Okay, so let's get into the top features on the S3400. And Billy, it's got to be starting with the 28 times optical zoom lens, wide angle with image stabilization.
First thing, you look at this camera, that's what you see. It looks like an SLR, although you can't remove the lens in the camera, but really long zoom. 24 millimeter wide, goes all the way to 672 millimeters. Take a look at this video on how close you can get. Wow, isn't that amazing what you can do with this lens?
That really is. I can't believe how light it is to have that focal length range from 24 millimeter to 672 millimeter equivalent. That is amazing. Listen, there's a lot of style cameras like this out there right now. And something that kind of bothers me is I've seen a lot of the cameras coming out right now. They've got this long zoom, but they're missing an eye viewfinder. In this case, an electronic eye viewfinder. And the thing that bothers me about that is that people cannot hold the camera steady unless you're really holding it up against your eye. You kind of get your own human tripod going there. So there's a lot of other cool things about the EVF, but I think if you're going to have any camera with a long zoom, you need to have this feature. Tell us about it.
Yeah, let's just take a look at this video to show you how to get that working on this camera.
Okay.
One of the key features of this camera, of course, is the electronic viewfinder. In order to use that, we just push this button right here, which is the EVF LCD button. I push it, and it jumps up to the top screen, as you can see right there. And if I push it again, it jumps right back. It also works for playback mode. So if I play back images, of course there's none here, if I push this button, it also jumps up to the top screen as well. Very useful if I'm taking pictures, of course, outdoors where it's very bright, or I want to look back at images again.
So now you see what I mean, though.
Yeah, a lot of good benefits on using electronic viewfinder, for sure.
Okay, so that's great. So we've got a 28 times zoom, ultra wide, I'm going to call it, because it's a 24 millimeter equivalent. This camera can be as easy as we want it to use by putting it into the SR Auto mode, and that stands for Scene Recognition Auto. Tell me about that one.
Yeah, Greg, I mean, we look at this camera, we think, wow, I don't know anything about photography, this is not the camera for me, when in fact, it is so simple to use. Point and shoot, it automatically determines you're shooting a macro shot, a portrait shot, a landscape shot. That SR Auto does the job for you. So let's take a quick look at this video to see how that functionality works on this camera. Another cool feature, of course, is the Scene Recognition Auto that's built into this camera. It's found on the mode dial. You can change it by changing to SR Auto. It recognizes several different scenes and switches the camera to the correct mode so that you can get the perfect shot all the time. If it's a close-up shot, it's going to know that. It's going to switch it to macro. Let's just take a look at some examples of it switching to different modes in the field.
That makes it simple.
Right.
And again, Billy mentioned this camera kind of does look a little bit more professional. It is designed for very easy use and operation. Although it is styled and looks like an SLR camera, you can't in fact actually change the lenses on this one. But feature-wise, function-wise, it's got a lot of other things. So besides the SR Auto, you've also got full manual controls.
Yeah, just like an SLR, you have the controls, the ability to do aperture priority, shutter priority, and also full manual controls where you adjust both settings. Take a look at this to see how to do that.
Okay.
Now this camera, like some SLRs, also offer the ability to control things like aperture and shutter priority. In order to do that, you could select one of the 3 different modes. You got shutter priority, aperture priority, and full manual control. If you're in shutter priority, which changes the shutter speeds, in order to do that, you would push the plus and minus button, and then you can actually push up and down, and it changes the shutter speed accordingly. So again, you can see the shutter speed changing faster and slower. And of course, if I change it to aperture priority instead, same thing happens again. If I push the plus and minus, I can now change the different apertures by pushing up and down to change the aperture control. in full manual control mode in order to change both aperture and shutter speeds. I can push that, and it basically tells me up and down is for shutter speeds, and left and right is for aperture. So let's say set the aperture to the widest aperture on this camera. You notice this scale is telling me that the pictures are underexposed, and the plus means overexposed. As I change the shutter speeds, fast or slower, see that line moved right to the middle now? It's going to tell me that it's perfectly exposed right in the middle. If I keep changing the shutter speed, now my picture is going to be way overexposed because the shutter speed is way too slow. So again, I'm going to adjust that properly down, and that is the way to adjust aperture and shutter speeds and getting the proper exposure. You can also use the histogram to help with the scene as well. And this histogram tells me that there's a lot of bright spots and a lot of dark spots here, if you want to read it that way.
Okay, so now whether you want it easy peasy or you want to really kind of get in there and use your photographic expertise, this camera covers off kind of both camps. That's amazing. I know that if I'm shooting with this style of camera, or if I'm shooting sports or something, or even shooting something from a distance, the high-speed shooting mode is something that I've always used right back in the film days for using a motor drive, and now they've got high-speed shooting modes.
Incredibly,
how is it on this camera?
Incredibly, you can shoot 8 frames per second and get 20 shots rapidly in succession, and it really helps you capture that one action shot that you're looking for. And this is a perfect camera to do that with. So let's just take a look at how that functionality works.
Okay.
The FinePix S3400 also has a nice high-speed shooting mode that allows you to capture 8 frames per second and also 3 frames per second if you want to shoot in about 7 megapixels. In order to turn to that mode, I recommend you set the dial to one of these 3 modes, or the program, shutter, aperture, or even full manual control. I'm just going to set it to shutter priority because most likely that's where you want to control the shutter speed on the camera to be very fast. So I'm going to set the shutter speed so that it's very fast for me. Of course, I want to be shooting outdoors and that I have good lighting. I'm going to set it just to the maximum, for example. Okay for that. And get out of that side. And then I'm going to push the continuous option up here. By pushing that, the menu comes up, and I can select from the various modes. I got top 6 and final 6, which gives me full resolution, but it's not very fast at all. There's also a long period shooting that's even slower, but it gives me full resolution. And here's the 2 options. At medium resolution, I can get top 20 images, and at basically the high-speed mode, I can get 40 images, but they're only 3 megapixels in size. So I'm going to select that because I know an 8x10 print is more than enough, for a 3 megapixel image. So I'm going to select that, and if I can hold the button down and just hold it down completely, as you can see, it fires a bunch of shots up to about 40 pictures on this camera.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's still even not at full resolution. You can still make a decent print.
I mean, a
which you
3
mentioned
megapixel
too.
image can give you an excellent 8x10 print.
Yeah, and I can, if I wanted to go at a higher megapixel, like 7 megapixel setting, I can get 3 frames per second still, which is still quite good.
That's right.
Excellent. So I'm walking around with this camera. I know I can fit anything in with my ultra wide. I know I've got a super telephoto so I can zoom in on almost any subject I want. But you know me, I love getting close with my camera to the subject to shoot macro. How
I mean,
good
the
is
macro
mode?
functionality gets you down to 5 centimeters, and if that's not close enough for you, there's also a super macro that goes down to 2 centimeters away. Let's take a look at some examples that we've done with this camera. Although the camera has a very long zoom, about 28 times zoom, you can also get very close-up shots with this camera by turning into the macro functionality on it. It is on scene recognition auto, so if it notices that you're up close, it's got to switch the scene to macro. There we go. And of course, you want to manually do that. Let's get out of this mode and go to something like Program Automatic. In order to turn the macro functionality on, you can see that's where the button is right there. You push it one time, and another time you have both macro, which gets you about 2 centimeters or 5 centimeters away, and of course super macro, which gets you to about 2 centimeters away. So 5 centimeters and 2 centimeters. Let's take a look at some examples out in the field.
Okay, we haven't gotten through all the features, but I'm already sold on this camera now. Anyhow, the next thing I want to talk about is the motion panorama mode. Well, of course, we've had this in other cameras, some more expensive cameras in the past, and you had to kind of line up and set the pictures. Motion panorama is, I understand, a lot easier to use and better quality. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we changed this around this year where, you took 3 shots, but this time it actually assists you in capturing and then lining the second and third shot. And it does it all in-house on the camera. Let's take a quick look at this little video that we've done on how that panoramic function works. Now, another cool feature in this camera is the motion panorama feature. You turn that on by changing the mode dial on the camera so it highlights panoramic. And it comes up with the options to basically take 3 photos from left to right, and it stitches it automatically for you. You can also change the direction by pushing up. And now you can select from right to left instead. So from right to left versus left to right. And go back to the default. And let's show you some examples of some panoramic stitch photos with the camera. The motion panoramic feature will automatically stitch 3 images together. If you notice, there's a plus sign and sort of a circular plus sign, and all you have to do is align that to want to overlap each other, and the camera will automatically take the photo without you having to push the shutter button. And it does it for the third shot as well, and then it stitches it automatically within the camera itself, and then saves it on the SD card.
Wow, that's amazing. And having it right on the mode dial is really easy to find that setting to do that. So hopefully they'll be using that feature a lot. You get some great dramatic shots like that. This camera's got some cool technology, including blink detection, smile and shoot mode, as well as face recognition. These are all cameras' intelligence deciding either when to take the picture or what to take the picture of or what to focus the exposure and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, blink detection is automatic. You take a shot, if the camera detects someone blinks, it just comes up with a warning saying, hey, maybe you want to do that shot over again.
Okay.
Okay? The smile and shoot basically is like your self-timer mode. Instead of counting down from 10 seconds, you basically smile, and it takes the shot for you.
So you get into your picture. As soon as we both smile, picture's taken.
And the face recognition part of it is similar in the sense it detects the subject's face, but now it actually can recognize individual faces. You can save those names of your buddy Mike or whatnot, and later on, if that subject comes into the play again or into that same scene, the camera's going to prioritize the exposure to be on that subject and the focus to be on him because the camera knows that subject. It's kind of cool to see. But you know what? Let's take a look at a demo on those 3 features.
Okay.
Now the camera has a blink detection feature that will automatically detect if you blinked or not. You don't have to change any settings for that. There's also what's called smile and shoot mode, and that automatically takes a photo once you smile. So let's take a look at that feature. You got to turn it to the scene position mode, okay? And then you push the menu button, and you can, if you go back up to scene position, you can push to the right and select the various scenes. I'm going to select that mode I talked about, which is smile and shoot. There we go. And let's take a look at that feature and how that works. The camera also has the ability to recognize faces in the scene aside from just detecting faces via the face detection feature. If you go into the menu on the camera and scroll down near the bottom, you can actually select face recognition and change some of the parameters. You can turn it on or off. You can actually register faces yourself by selecting that. There's actually a little icon here with a little grid line that you match the 2 eyes, and when you take a photo, then you save that photo onto the camera and name it. It's going to automatically recognize that subject next time and place a name and priority focusing on that subject. I'm going to push back. I'm going to show you some real live examples of that. You can also have it to auto-register so it detects faces and automatically recognize similar images and so that it tags them together.
Well, I don't know what they're going to think of next, but that is really something. The fact that the camera has little brain in there can figure all that stuff out.
So much
That's
features.
really...
Wow, just
So let's say I'm at a soccer game. I'm using this camera because it's got such a powerful zoom on it. I'm zooming right in on my kid, but I'm really far away. They're running all over the field. There's a feature called tracking autofocus on this one.
Yeah, Greg, the tracking autofocus feature is really meant where you want to just capture that scene. You don't want to move the camera around. But the problem is that it's hard to focus if the subject's moving within the scene. So the tracking autofocus actually allows the camera to quickly track anything that's moving, and you select that quickly, and it reduces the time that the camera focuses,
Right.
so that you can capture that right shot.
So when the perfect composition comes and you go to take the picture, the camera doesn't have to focus first.
That's right. It's already locked in. And
Cool.
again, let's take a look at this to see how
All
that
right.
works. It's enabled in any of these modes like PS, AOM. So if you go into that and you push the menu OK button, you select the autofocus mode. You can change it to tracking autofocus. Now there's different options here, of course, multi-focusing, area focusing, where you can move it to the points yourself. There's a continuous autofocus, and of course tracking autofocus. We're going to select that. We're going to push display back to get out of the menu. And basically, for example, if I want to track that chair, I can push left to start the tracking. As I pan the camera, it's going to constantly lock in on that subject. Or if that subject is actually moving, it's going to auto track itself.
Wow, you
Isn't that
weren't
great?
kidding. Yeah, I love how the box kind of follows it around there too. So, this camera's a pretty decent size. If I go on vacation, I'm thinking it's the perfect camera to take because of the versatility of the lens. It shoots video as well?
It shoots HD video, and I mean, you can make full use of that large zoom by zooming in during the video recording.
Nice.
Let's take a look at some examples of that.
So this really is the complete camera, and I can't believe it's under $300. It's amazing. So the 28 times ultra-wide zoom lens, a gorgeous screen. It's got the electronic viewfinder, which is a must for cameras of this style. Amazing top
those
features.
videos look good, and the fact that there's a built-in HDMI port on the camera,
Right
you can
on.
connect it to an HD
Exactly.
TV and see that not just images but also videos you shot in this camera. Just
Straight
what a
off the
perfect
camera.
travel camera.
Yeah,
for sure.
so bring one of those cables with you when you go on vacation. You can look at your pictures in your hotel room and your movies. Anyways, those are the top features of the S3400. I just want to finish by saying that we've got a lot of great videos on YouTube. We want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want to hear from you, questions, comments. Otherwise, also follow us on Twitter. And but until then, next video, I'm Greg.
I'm Billy.
And we're the Fuji Guys.